Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Freedom Entrepreneur Podcast, the ultimate destination for all you freedom seekers out there who are yearning to break free from the chains of a traditional job and create an online business that allows you to live life on your terms. Get ready to unlock the secrets of online business, digital marketing, and be inspired by incredible interviews with those who are already living the dream. And now, please join us in welcoming your host, Lindsay Sutherland, a high-performance business consultant and a true advocate of the laptop lifestyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Freedom Entrepreneur Podcast. So excited to have you here with me. If you are a coach, a service-based business owner, or somebody who's looking to build an online business, you are in the right place. We are covering topics from growing a business to scaling a business and beyond. And of course, we do our Monday Mindset episodes. So you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Okay, my dear friends, today I want to share with you that I've got a special download available. Everybody loves a free download, but this one especially is going to be very helpful for you, whether you're just starting out in business or whether you've been at it for a little while now. Heck, even if you've been at it for quite a while now. This is one of the things, these 5 steps are things that I go through when I meet a business owner, and it is very common for at least one, maybe 2, maybe 3 or 4 of these things to have either been overlooked or to just not have been given the full attention that it deserves. So what I'm going to do over the next 5 weeks is I'm going to break down these 5 steps and I'm going to give you a little bit more insight. Now, if you want to jump the gun and get a copy of this today, you certainly can. You can get it right now by heading over to the link that I'm going to put down here in the description, but it is lindsaysutherland.com/5 steps to higher profits. Just simply /5 steps to higher profits. And 5 is written out, number 5. Okay, so with that being said, let's dive into this training. Well, let me just preface this training by saying this one thing. You're going to see that some of these are very simple, but the beauty of them is that there is no cost involved. So when I meet business owners, a lot of times their mind is set to, I need more leads, lead generation, lead generation, lead generation. Well, not to say that lead generation isn't wise and a viable way of generating more revenue, but it doesn't always generate more profit. So why is that? Because what do we have to do to generate more leads? We have to get more visible. And most of the time when we do that, it is involving advertising costs. Well, the word cost means that now we're going to have an expense. Now, the adage, of course, is you've got to spend money to make money. But the good news is it's not always true. You can make more profit without spending more dollars in generating leads. Okay. So that's what's kind of fun about this is these are just, they're simple. I'm not going to say they're not. They're very simple, but they're very likely something that you didn't think about first, because the first thing most people think about is lead generation. Okay. So today we're going to talk about raising your prices. Now, this PDF, this has broken down into it assessments, little questionnaires that you can take. This will help you determine if this particularly key area is a significant area for you to focus on in your business. So for example, if you answer yes to 2 or more of these questions, it is time to raise prices. So I'm going to ask you the 5 questions and then we'll talk about them. So the first one is, has it been more than 18 months since you've raised prices? Number 2, could you reasonably raise your prices by 10% without losing more than 20% of your clients? Number 3, is your closing percentage more than 80%? Number 4, is your net profit margin less than 7% per sale? And number 5, is your industry growing at more than 10% per year? Now, why are these questions important? Well, let's break it down. So if it's been more than 18 months since you've raised prices, I can guarantee you the market has risen. Unless you were overpriced before, there's a very good chance that you are now underpricing yourself. Frankly, I have also met people who have raised their prices in the last 18 months and are still undercharging. So, one of the things I do see that people run across is that they don't know how to raise their prices. Now, granted, one thing they might fear is, well, I don't want to raise my prices exorbitantly because all my customers will leave. They're all used to this, and that's fine. What about raising your prices for future clients? That's definitely like, for example, I see this a lot with social media managers who just get started and they quote maybe five, six, $700 a month to manage social media. Suddenly, one day they realize that like the base quotes out there are well over $1,000. So they decide they want to start charging more. Well, clearly, to go back to these clients who are used to paying you, 50, 60% of what market value is, it could definitely deter people. That would be a huge jump. But there's no reason not to say that you couldn't just take on more clients at a higher price point. You can still raise your prices. Now, if you can reasonably raise your prices by 10% without losing 20% of your clients, then you can raise your prices. And so, a lot of times where I see this is even in e commerce businesses or businesses that have um, many products, like, for example, construction. A construction bid could not reasonably raise their price by 10%, really, in truth, unless, we're going back to COVID times. That's a different story. But in general, they can't raise them 10% because their bids are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But if you are doing smaller services, smaller scale services, or you sell products, most of the time, 10% is negligible to your consumer and can actually make a huge difference if you're selling in volume. So, number three is your closing percentage more than 80%. Now, why do I ask this? Because a lot of times people are thinking, great, if my closing percentage is 80%, then I'm doing something right. Well, the truth actually is that if it's higher than 80%, either one possibility is that you're getting all referrals, like everybody's a referral, which would be great for you if that's the case. But if your closing percentage on cold leads is more than 80%, then my friends, your prices are probably so low. And a lot of people are choosing you because you're the lowest price bid, which doesn't always make for a great experience for you or for them. So 80% is a really high closing ratio. I mean, really high closing ratio. So if you're closing higher than 80%, either you are like a sales god or goddess, um, or your prices are just so low that it's a no-brainer for people to go with you. You can stand to raise your prices and you'll be more profitable. You're going to end up working with more people who actually respect your time and are happy to pay. Like it's just interesting how that works. Plus, you'll be more profitable even if your closing percentage dips. So, is your net profit margin less than 7% per sale? Listen, net profit margins vary by industry. You should look up your industry net profit margin, but the standard is 7 to 10%. And that's for like e commerce where you have a high cost of goods. If you're in a service based business, then if your net margin is less than 7%, then we really need to talk. But I put that on here because I wanted to be applicable to a broader range of businesses. But like I said, if your net profit margin is less than 7% per sale, you need to raise your price. You need to raise your prices. You're risking your business going under. Okay, last question is your industry growing at more than 10% per year? So a lot of people don't even actually think about that. Understanding your industry that you're in, is it a growing industry? Is it a saturated industry? Even if it's saturated, it could still be growing. Like, look at the digital marketing agency. There's definitely a lot of saturation. However, there's a lot of opportunity because there's so much to learn and to do that a lot of times people, it's over their heads. So they're reaching out, they're seeking help. So it's actually a growing industry. So understanding your industry and understanding if the growth is more than 10% per year also indicates that your industry is in demand. So your prices can go up. Okay, so I hope that helps explain those 5 questions and gives you a little more insight. So, again, if you answered yes to 2 or more of those, it's time for you to raise your prices. Now, oftentimes when I suggest raising prices to my clients, they have like little mini panic attacks because they're fearing losing current or potential customers. And it's such a palpable fear that they immediately are turned off by the idea, but it can mean huge rewards for you. So think about your business. I mean, if your average product is $60, 10% is $6. Is that really going to scare people off? Probably not. So think about that. And really, another quick tip I want to give you before I sign off today is this: doing 10% price increase doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to do it all the way across the board. You could simply do maybe some key products, do a product analysis, do some market research. Definitely don't just arbitrarily raise your prices, but give it some thought and some consideration. The fact is that most businesses can increase their prices by 3 to 10% without losing more than 10% of their current client base. And almost always, the clients that leave are the highest maintenance, most unsatisfied clients anyway. So definitely give this a little more thought and be sure to get the download so that you can get the rest of these um, tips to increasing profit in your business today. I'm so grateful that you're choosing to tune into the Freedom Entrepreneur podcast. Until next time. Bye for now. Until next time, stay motivated, stay focused, and remember that the power to create the life that you want is already within you. I'm Lindsay Sutherland, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Freedom Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode of the Freedom Entrepreneur Podcast, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with your fellow freedom seekers. Together, we'll inspire and empower countless individuals to live life on their own terms.